pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Larry, would you please hold the board for attendance?
I sure will. Ross, dear,
Here.
thanks.
Here.
Oh, good. Weisberg.
Here.
Argwell. Whoop. Gorson.
Here.
Moon's here. No, here. Shang.
Here.
We're 6 tonight.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any correspondence?
No.
Any correspondence this
No,
evening?
I don't, no. No, no.
We have, we're at the point of the meeting where we have visitor statements. I understand that we have some people who want to make a visitor statement. I'm not sure who. Okay, so just so you know, we welcome your comments and love to hear what you have to say. We're probably not going to respond tonight. We'll respond at a later point. And if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, do you mind if I take this off so you can hear me better?
Let's see. I'm sorry.
And could you please give us your name and the village you're from?
Lori Smith, Long Grove. Yes, I have to admit that isosceles triangles make me feel hormonal. Don't get me wrong, I like girls and their curves. I really like women and their curvier curves. I spend hours in the bathroom with magazines that have 1,000 pictures of naked movie stars. Naked women plus right hand equals happy, happy, joy, joy. Yep, that's right, I admit that I masturbate. I'm proud of it, I'm good at it, I'm ambidextrous. If there was a professional masturbators league, I'd get drafted #1 and make millions of dollars. And maybe you're thinking, well, I really shouldn't talk about masturbation in public. Well, tough, I'm gonna talk about it anyway. Because everybody does it, and everybody likes it. And if God didn't want us to masturbate, then God would have given us thumbs. So thank God for my thumbs. Did you know that Indians are living proof that niggers fuck buffalo? These are 2 parts of the book that was required reading for freshman English. Required, not just a book that's on the library shelves. This book is filled with vile and vulgar language, assault, violence against women, sexual innuendo, and blatant sexual imagery. There is no explanation you or the teacher can provide that would validate any educational purpose of this assignment. And if you're not aware, the author is currently under investigation for sexual assault and sexual harassment, of which he is not denied. Interestingly, I posted these quotes from the required reading onto Facebook, and I was restricted from further posting because it was flagged as hate speech. Now they're reading a book, which is a graphically sexual book about a 13-year-old being raped. Second, a few weeks ago, I informed the board that another teacher, one who teaches freshman world history, of a comment he made to his class. He stated, which has since been confirmed, if you don't think that your parents will like what you're learning in class, don't tell them. Then he proceeded to discuss in great detail the sexual orientation and the extensive sexual history of Alexander the Great's father. I emailed every one of you my concerns, and you didn't have enough respect to even simply acknowledge my email. Further, another teacher publicly COVID-shamed a student who told her she was going to Florida with her family. Every one of these is in direct violation of your own board policy 680. We are getting sick of this district hypersexualizing their curriculum. We are getting sick of teachers having free rein to give their personal opinions and present whatever curriculum and material they wish. These teachers have failed the children miserably. These are only 3 of a growing list of teachers that are making the children uncomfortable. These teachers are being empowered by the district to pollute the students' minds as long as they label it equity. This is unacceptable. We will not stand by while our children continue to be uncomfortable with what's happening under this roof. I have been in education for 23 years, and I can assure you I know what constitutes acceptable teaching practices and acceptable curriculum, and these are not. How do you think we know about these incidences? Because our kids are telling us. We, the parents, have taught our children the difference between right and wrong, and they know this is wrong, and they are telling us daily. If you think I'm going to stop paying attention to what's happening in the classroom, let me be clear. I'm not going anywhere. I won't be canceled because I am not for sale.
Thank you. And do you want us to keep your speech?
I'm sorry?
Do you want
Can
us
we
to
have a copy of your speech?
copy the speech? It'll be part of the minutes. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Any other comments? And is your way to contact you on the?
No, it's not on here.
have my email from the email I sent you guys a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
and
I
I
don't,
can write it down.
Oh, that's okay.
I just have one comment. This book was banned in 2014 by the American Library Association. And it is one of the most banned books of all the schools.
okay.
It's a simple Google.
And who are you?
I'm another parent that's a child that's in the same class reading the same books.
And your,
Have any of you read these books?
just can we have your name for the record?
Sure, Stacy
And your last name?
Horowitz, Horwitz.
And what village are you from?
Lincolnshire.
Lincolnshire. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Nicholas?
You're up.
Well, before I start on the presentation, the holidays came early. So just a little bit of school board appreciation for you all. I know last year Michaela got you all mugs with calligraphy on them, so I knew I had to follow up with that one. Let me just organize.
Can I help you?
Yeah.
Oh, I see, the names.
Better not be a book.
No, this is personalized? Okay,
This is fake. Keen is there.
Mr. Frost is Stevenson. And Gordon? Okay.
Thank you. Oh, look at that. Oh, nice.
Wow.
That's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aw, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Very nice.
You can thank Etsy.
You told Etsy what to do though.
Yes.
Exactly.
Very good.
That doesn't get you out of giving us one of your reports, which we look at.
Nice try.
Okay, so welcome to the school board presentation, November 15th. Okay. So we have student council, really proud of the boomerang I took on Instagram. So this leads directly into my first point about can collections for student council. So obviously it's a season of service, season of giving, which is kind of spearheaded by National Honor Society with Give-a-thon, but they also do baby food item drives as well as food drives, can collections. So student council is helping them in that endeavor. So this weekend we were outside in front of Sunset Lawn Grove from 10 to 2 p.m. And I don't know how these members are that enthused in 35-degree weather. I certainly wasn't. But we posted that on our Instagram. We just have a quick little sign. And then we were both at both entrances and it was a huge success. I think that was the most cans we've ever collected in my 3 years of doing can collections. Then next weekend we're in front of Mariano's in Buffalo Grove, so make sure to stop by and donate some cans. And then my next point is Student Congress. So today we had an activity period. So during activity period, myself, another officer, and two of our board members, Abby Sherrick and Kaden Gazvini, went to the West Staff Dining Hall and we took petitions. And I felt like this was a really successful Student Congress because our past Student Congress, there was an issue with the form, but we corrected that today. So hopefully e-board will vote on all the new petitions this Thursday. And then one thing we pledged as a council is to make all the petitions public and kind of just make sure that everyone knows where the petitions are in the passing process. So that was really important for our steps in that. And then last thing, just very student council. So we figured out that we were supposed to take yearbook photos about a week ago, but we don't really have any student council shirts yet. So that's something we're doing within our organization. And then before I move on, I know you guys talk a lot about budget stuff. So whoever approved Canva Pro for students, good job. Okay, next up we have freshman mentor program. So kind of a bare slide, but lots to go through. So recruitment week, that's starting this week, this Friday, during all lunch periods. The freshman mentor program will be hosting informational meetings with a bunch of mentors in the recital hall. So this is for all prospective mentors. So both sophomores and juniors are invited to come. And this is super important. So kind of for promotion, FMP is asking mentors to post this on their Instagram stories, kind of why I joined FMP, and then also just the information for the meeting. And I think especially with last year, social media has become such an integral part to club's promotion and kind of boosting engagement with the whole school. So that's super awesome that they're doing that. And then also they had a critically acclaimed ad for a dancing ad by Mr. Kaneen, which if you get approval from Mr. Kaneen, you know your ad's pretty good. So they remixed Levitating by Dua Lipa, and it was an amazing ad. It looked a lot like High School Musical. Then the next thing up is kind of more of a fun point. So with leadership lunches, those are meetings we have monthly as mentors. And the main point with leadership lunches is the democracy. I know I've weirdly learned a lot about approved vendors for Stevenson. So Lou Malnati's has always been providing the food at leadership lunches, but we had pasta this week, so that's kind of a fun update for freshman mentor program. Because we had the SOS program, and then we also had leadership lunch all in 1 week, so we had Lou Malnati's like 3 days out of the week. The mentors were kind of sick of it. So that was kind of fun to have. And then the last thing on here, I think last week Dr. Haney presented in the Performing Arts Center just about Speak Up Protocol, which is a lesson on bias. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, but luckily I got to have the same presentation done at Slack. So I still kind of got that, and I feel like it was a really important presentation. When I talked with Ms. Gerber, she said that he did an amazing job. So just going through, I think the steps are interrupt, question, educate, and echo. So those are kind of the 4 steps, and I'll go more in depth about that later. Okay, next up we have National Honor Society. So not a whole lot of diversity within the slide because they're definitely super focused on Give-a-thon. So that's kind of an annual event, and I kind of hinted at it last presentation. So we're now in the selling phase, and that's kind of coming to a close with it ending on November 30th. So a bunch of students are selling for each of their classes. I'm doing one for my literature class, 6th period. So I'm working with several other students. And some popular items I've seen this year are Arnold Palmer's, lots of drinks. Celsius, you guys know Celsius energy drinks? Those are super popular this year. And also Capri Suns and stuff like that. I think my sophomore, freshman year, the Gushers were super popular, so it's always interesting to see the different trends. Then Collection Day, so NHS eBoard just sent out the sign up for Collection Day. So NHS members really enjoy Collection Day because you're bringing all the gifts to the different sites. And I think the members are super excited because it's a field trip and you get to miss a little bit of school. And then the last point we have here is advisory collections. So this kind of ties in with freshman mentor program. So during committee meetings, NHS has been, they had a box day, which just means they're assembling cardboard boxes to put in each advisory, and advisories compete to see who can collect the most mac and cheese boxes. And they also have to build a nice structure with it, and the prize is yet to be determined. Okay, moving on to the second last slide, we have a Slack recap. So this goes back to the Speak Up protocol. Like I said, interrupt, question, echo, and educate. So throughout Slack, the bulk of the meeting was just going through examples of stuff that has actually been said at Stevenson, which I found shocking and a little bit interesting as well, just to see how people would respond and kind of just making sure that the leaders at Stevenson are trying to create a culture where we're trying to eliminate bias. So that was a lot about the Speak Up protocol. And then towards the end of Slack, we had, actually towards the beginning, we had a finals discussion. So I think this was one of my favorite Slack meetings that I've been to because it really captured the essence of advisory within Slack. So Mr. Gobble kind of talked about a lot of finals experiences and how finals usually in the past have ended up hurting students' grades more than helping them. So kind of just the evolution of finals, because I've definitely seen from my freshman year taking a 90-minute math final on the whole semester to last year online just doing the one target I needed to kind of show growth within EBR. So I think it's definitely beneficial, and some of the benefits to what we have for finals now have been included getting experience for the AP test, which I remember we did at the end of first semester in AP Euro, and then also just getting to bond with teachers. I think in-person school last year definitely was more intimate regardless, but I think with the last couple of finals days, if you didn't have a lot to do, you could really talk with your teacher and build bonds, which I thought was super helpful because now they're some of my favorite people. I say hi to them in the hallway every day and they're recommending me to go to college, so. And then the last thing we did in Slack was question time. So this was really just a Q&A hosted by Mr. Gobble, who I saw walking out. He didn't want to see my presentation tonight.
His daughter's getting an award tonight, so that was,
I'll let him slide.
yeah, just this one time, just one time.
But some things we talked about were Odyssey logistics, because a lot of music groups like Triumph were represented, and I know fine arts is super popular at Stevenson, so a lot of students were disappointed to lose Odyssey this year, even though it is kind of more optional, it's just not necessarily built into our schedule. We talked about EBR and kind of like efficacy grades and how that ties in with homework, the process for new classes, mental health days, which I think the Illinois Congress just passed for next year. So a wide variety of topics, which I thought was super important to discuss. And some of them were brought up at Student Congress, so kind of some overlap between those two meetings. Okay, then the last thing, my favorite slide. So first thing I want to talk about was senior nights. So obviously at football games, I've seen poms, cheer, soccer, band, swim and dive, field hockey, etc. Like all the sports are really having their senior nights, and it has me thinking about my senior night for tennis next semester. So kind of a sad moment, but obviously very happy for all my friends and everyone involved for senior night. And I know it's a senior night, but the whole team is really impacted because what I've learned from being on tennis is, teams are never really the same from year to year. And my freshman year team was especially was super special to me. So definitely a lot of love for all the seniors, regardless of what grade you're in on sports. Then the next thing is World's Fair. So sadly, this was the weekend that I got super sick, so I couldn't go. But $10,000 were raised, and all the booths were held in the morning, and then the performances were later on. And the student council treasurer, Brianna, was lucky enough to go to one of the performances and provide me with this picture, so shout out to her. Then the next thing I wanted to talk about was November 1st. So I'm often asked by Mr. Weisberg what's kind of the vibe and feeling amongst the student body. So I think, I know November 1st has passed and you think a lot of students are very relieved, but I think that was kind of very short-lived because a lot of us are really gearing up for the end of the semester now and making sure that we show colleges the best work we can for regular decision applications, and then also those deadlines are fairly imminent. So kind of just doesn't end, but it's okay. And then also Military Week. So this was actually a collaboration between Political Action Club and Students Helping Soldiers. So they handed out poppy flowers at the beginning of the day, kind of like what the Statesman does with their newspapers. So that was super cool. And Mr. Kinney is obviously the leader of Political Action Club, so I see a lot of stuff. So I saw a lot of the poppy flowers in his class. And then one thing with this picture, this was signing day last week, so I was lucky enough to go. My friend Nora Kowalski was committing to Miami, Ohio, so I had to show up and support her. Obviously, a lot of my peers were also signing as well, so it's super proud moment for me just to know these people who are going to all these amazing schools and really achieved greatness athletically. And then also, one other thing was SpongeBob the Musical is happening this weekend, which I'm super excited for. Because I remember going to the play my freshman year, and that was really amazing. So I'm excited to see what they do, and a lot of my friends who are seniors have leading roles, so we'll be excited to see all their performances. And I think that's running the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st, but don't quote me on that. Okay, that's about it. Any questions?
Wow.
Wow.
As
That's a
always,
lot.
it's a
Thank you.
fact-filled presentation and love the way you do it, Nicholas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any
Hope you
questions?
enjoy your gifts. I love my PPA planner, so that's where I really got the inspiration from.
Excellent. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, just a comment. I appreciate having you here, and I like watching you play tennis too. But I'm really not curious as much about the vibe as I am that you are a unique window into real-time, unfiltered response of how the kids are feeling. And I trust your judgment and your view. Thank you.
Oh, also, one thing I forgot to mention, also daylight savings time obviously puts a damper on the mood, so that's another thing to add to the student body. But I think that's for everyone.
Didn't mean you should actually speak.
We need to change that, right?
Yes. No, I saw a TikTok on it. There were two like Harvard professors, they were like, we need to ban daylight savings time. So,
TikTok said it.
Over it.
yeah, exactly. So, have a good night, everyone. Great to see you.
Take care. Thank you so much.
All right, well, wait, can I go on? Sorry.
Please.
Sorry. So I'm just so excited to have our members of our Student Services Division here for our annual update on our student surveys. We did not get a chance to have you present last year because of COVID and all that kind of craziness, so we're very excited to have you back. I don't know, did you bring presents for the board? Did you want to start with presents?
I think
Or?
I have some 20s in my wallet.
Oh, I don't know.
I think I can find
I don't know.
some
Nick,
water around here.
Nick led with presents. I don't know.
You know, they are very cute too.
Yeah.
They are.
All right. Well, we'll worry about that later.
Okay.
So, Sarah, do you want to introduce your team here? Not that
course.
they need any introduction.
Exactly, they're world renowned. So again, we're thrilled always for the opportunity to connect with you all and talk a little bit about the work we've done to support our students over the last year. We have for how many years in a row now, Patty? Is this your 20?
This is my 26th, but I missed my 25th.
Okay, so her 25th year of sharing this information with you all. And we like to say we're the original student voice survey, so Patty will ship like before Panorama was even a thing. Patty will share that information, and then super excited this year to be joined by Sarah LaFrancis, who, as you all know, is our Assistant Director of Student Services and has made so many wonderful, so many of the things that we'll describe possible in our division over the last year and a half.
Awesome.
Do you feel adequately introduced?
I do.
Okay.
Do I have to keep my mask on? Okay. All right. So, student satisfaction surveys. This is what we're going to be talking about
Give
today.
me 1 second.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. If everyone is in, we still. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
So the OG student voice survey, we're going to talk about some student services information, some school-wide information, and then we got RAMP, and we'll tell you about what that is. We have some lessons that we've learned during the pandemic that are continuing on, and then our student services mental health wellness focus are what we're going to be talking about today. So starting with our survey procedures, it was a little different last year. We did our surveys over Zoom during course selection. We had our 12th graders do our exit survey during their hybrid English classes in April and May. And then our 1-year and 5-year surveys, we're now actually, instead of phone calling all the people that we can get, we are partnering with the Alumni Association and sending out a Google survey to all the alumni that we have. And our 1-year survey for the class of 2020, we had 147 respondents. And then for the 5-year survey for the class of 2016, we had 148 respondents. So
It's nice, it's about 50 more students.
50
we're
more
hearing
students,
from, so.
correct, yes. So let's talk about the student services information first. So one of the things that you probably knew, but maybe not, so go over it a little bit, is that on a normal year, students come into our offices and let us know how they're feeling. They tell us over email, but a lot of the times they're just walking into our offices, and when we were hybrid, they couldn't do that. So we really had to think differently about how the students were able to contact us and how we were able to contact them. So some of the things that we did during hybrid learning, we had Zoom office hours every day at the beginning of the year. We had weekly office hours for the rest of the year. We had Calendly links where students could get direct access to our calendars to make appointments with us. We had Canvas pages for every grade level. We still continued our weekly advisory visits. We had Bitmoji pages for the freshmen. Do people know what Bitmoji pages are? Ever seen a Bitmoji page? I'll show you really quickly what a Bitmoji page is. So it was a little page that looked like this, and I was on there, and we had Miss Wright and Miss Fenton on there because they were my advisory teachers, and just information about my family and things, and just stuff that the students could connect to when I was seeing them on Zoom. So we did that. We also had a de-stress hub for Stevenson where students could go through and have books and different arts and crafts that they could do, etc. So we really tried to see how we could help the students in virtual environments. We did our pulse survey, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. We did individualized course selections via Zoom. We had remote college and career programming. We had group supports via Zoom, and then we did some pandemic-specific support groups. So all of these things, we were hoping that students would feel like we were available to them, that we were connected to them, and we were hoping that our numbers would not go down a lot on our student surveys, really. And so what happened was actually we got the highest numbers that we've ever had in terms of accessibility, 100%, virtually 100%. I think so less than 6 students said that we were not accessible. Academic counseling, our helpfulness in that was 100% of students agreed. Our friendliness and approachability, again, 100%. And then asking the students, do you feel your counselor knows you? 97% of them agreed to that. And then if students were comfortable discussing personal or non-academic concerns with us, 94% of them agreed that yes, they were comfortable doing that. So when we talk about this being the original student voice survey, like what was the change? So why did we even do this? And I think probably Terry was the only person around when I was giving this conversation 25 years ago, but this is where it started. So when we asked them in 1997 if they were comfortable talking to their counselors about personal issues, 74% of them said yes. And now we're at 94%. It's been a while since 1997, but this is where we started and this is where we've gotten to. And even in a year of a pandemic, we were still able to continue with that belonging, with that accessibility. So we were very proud of that fact. So let's talk about some school-wide information. First of all, the connectedness or the belongingness of students to their the staff members. This is a question we ask every year. Name the people who had a positive impact on your high school experience. We asked the class of 2021, and they named 569 people. This was a class that did not have school for a year and a little, and still came up with 569 separate staff members. The year before was the only year that was higher than that, which was 591. Some of the things that the students said about this, and I think you all know, but we have about 1,000 of these comments about our staff members. So he's always emphasized making classroom a community. The security guards are true legends. They were able to connect with us, and they kept us under control. So that's good stuff. He teaches like Miyagi. I met so many SHS staff who really care about student well-beings. They were very understanding of the situations when our personal and academic lives merged together. They were really welcoming and made it worthwhile coming to school during the pandemic. She was always super happy. I noticed something about the faculty at SHS. I've never had a teacher I did not like. And then very, very happy, extremely satisfied. They're amazing people. they maybe feel as if I belonged here, they saw potential that even I myself did not recognize. So again, just the teachers, even during a pandemic, really making their classrooms a community and connecting with the students. So some other interesting information. First of all, this is from our one-year survey. So down here this is 2021, 91% of our one-year survey respondents had completed AP classes, and 87% of those received credit when they went to college. So those are very high numbers. We have some other just interesting information about that 1 in 5 year survey. So this is 99% of the students in the 1 year follow-up survey attended college after Stevenson, and 97% of the 5 year follow-ups attended college. In the 5 year follow-up, 91% completed an undergraduate degree in 5 years. And then of those students, 88% of them finished a bachelor's degree in 4 years or less. And I think we've spoken about this before. That has more to do with the AP credit that they go in with, as well as socioeconomic status that they can afford to pay for 4 years of school, but that's an extremely high number. And I think the board has asked before, how does this compare to other schools? And nobody gets this information, quite frankly. So there's usually a 6 year graduation rate because the 4 year graduation rate is so low. Also, the 1 year follow-up, 96% of those students, so this is a class of 2020, felt as well or better academically prepared than their peers. 95% of those college freshmen report a college GPA of 3.0 or above. So they're doing very well here, and then when they're going to college, they're continuing that. Some information on the college majors. So many times we have seen that our 1 year respondents have said that they are going for multiple majors, and by the time they're 5 year, the multiple majors falls off the list. And this year, actually, we had multiple majors as they started, and then 5 years later, those students were getting bachelor's degrees in more than one major. And then we've got business and health sciences, and then the health sciences falls off a little bit, and engineering coming up strong for the 5 year. Some more 5 year information. So the big change here is this is the highest amount of working, the percentage of working alumni after 5 years at 74%. And then the still attending school, either finishing their undergraduate degree or continuing on with graduate school, and then only 1% of them looking for work, and then 1% of them doing something else. And then this is just reflections on Stevenson. This is from the 1 year survey. What would they change? And this is numbers, these aren't percentages. So 16 of them would have gotten more involved in clubs and activities. 12 would have worried less about grades. Another 12 would have had more fun. And 9 would have worried less about taking AP classes. So you can see that they were more, I just would have had more fun at Stevenson. And then nothing, they loved it. And then the 5 year, pretty much the same thing. So get more involved, have more fun and hang out with my friends, take more electives that interest me, less academic stress and pressure, and then 15 of them would have changed nothing. And then what were the best aspects of SHS? So always number 1 is teachers and staff, and then friends, clubs, and sports. So now we just want to tell you about what's going on in student services at this time. We are a ramp school. So we have a little plaque that we were presented with at the American School Counseling Association. And here, Dr. Frost, I will give that to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what does RAMP mean? RAMP is Recognized American School Counseling Association Model Program. It requires an evaluation of our divisions, programs, and resources to ensure that we're meeting the needs of students and families. It's an application that we put through in 2019, and it was about 175 pages long, that we had to tell them all about the programs that we have here. Just a fun fact, we were the largest school counseling staff that has ever received the RAMP recognition. But we were recognized in 2020, and then the whole world shut down right after. So that's okay, we were good. But then what does RAMP mean? That the school counseling program is based on data-informed decision-making, delivered to all students, developmentally appropriate. We're focusing on all student needs for post-secondary readiness and success, closing achievement and opportunity gaps, and then really improve student achievement, attendance, and discipline. So that is our RAMP status. We have that for 5 years, and then we get to re-ramp, right?
That's right.
Yes, so we get to re-ramp after that.
Whoa,
Oh,
congratulations. Nice
oh,
job.
thank you.
Seriously, a number of us were involved in some of those meetings early on, and it does seem like a long time ago. Like that COVID year is like
Right.
7 dog years or whatever that is,
Right,
just so long ago.
Yeah.
But I know that was a lot of work, and we're really grateful for it. Hopefully, the process, was valuable to you as, a reflective opportunity, and I know you guys have made a lot of really great growth. So I didn't want to let that go without
Thank you.
just a congratulations. It's
Thank you.
well deserved.
Thank
And so
Thank you very
Um,
much.
Good work.
maybe if the board members wanted to keep the plaque for a month in each one of their houses, they could
Right,
do
and
that.
take
Like,
pictures of it, put it on Instagram,
I know the admin team wants to as well, so,
different holiday celebrations, everybody.
Yeah, like the Stanley
Yeah.
Cup or,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely. I love
you
it.
can be first. So,
Good job, David. Thank you very much.
Yep. Congratulations.
So what were our pandemic lessons? And I sort of say this like we're out of it, but we're not really. But the things we learned from our hybrid year. First of all, the Calendly sign up for students. So we have continued to do that. So any student can email us, in our signatures, we have a link to Calendly, and they can have direct access to our calendars to make appointments to see us. That information is on our website, so they can do that. We continue to have remote and virtual meetings for families through the CCC, any scope meetings we have, 504 meetings that we have, and really we're hoping that this increases access to our programming to families who might not have childcare or transportation or other things that make it difficult to come to some of those meetings. So we are continuing to do that. As the students have found, social media is a great way to get the word out about our programming. We have a very active student services Instagram page now. It's very exciting. I'm on so many reels or stories or whatever. We are recording our presentations for students and families to see. And then all of these things really rely on an amazing communications team. So Jamie is really our BFF right now.
We love you.
So good. She let us put our stuff in her office, but also she is amazing just trying to figure out how we can communicate with the community, with our students, with our families, and to get the word out. So one of the things we did a little differently and it's great because Jamie's able to see things. She's like, this really doesn't make any sense. Can we tighten this up a little bit? We're like, yeah, as a matter of fact, we absolutely can. So one of the things that we did was the Let's Talk About Your Future night. So it's our no homework night, but we are now using it really to kick off course selection. So that's sort of how we're selling it. We do it every year in October. Students and families are encouraged to talk to each other about their goals, but then really talk to them about their goals so that it informs course selection. And we have guiding questions on the website. And this is the data from our survey. Who participated and did it inform their course selection? And you can see that if they participate, it does inform their course selection. So we need more students to participate. And we're hoping that we're doing some things this year and in years to come to do that. So the changes we did, we put LaTAFE, is what we call it, on the website as the beginning of course selection. So the experience is more cohesive. Instead of making it a game, we just gave some guiding questions to families if they were having a problem sort of getting that communication started. We did do social media posts leading up to the event. And then the counselors were really a physical presence in the common areas of that day to just remind the students. So here we are with students, we asked them to write down the name of a class that they were excited about taking in the future, and then we gave them some Welch's fruit snacks because that seems to be the thing to give the kids these days. So that's all of us with the class they're deciding they're excited to take in the future. So that was fun, just getting out and seeing the kiddos. And then we've got our wellness and mental health focus. So again, we gave pulse surveys to students, and I believe you talked about this at the summer retreat, but about 11,000 pulse surveys were given over the school year last year. 662 students responded that they were having more concerns than usual, and then social workers and counselors followed up with these students. But then how are we moving that into the school year where students are here and we're able to see them? We really are having this focus. First of all, we are utilizing social media, and we're having the students help us utilize social media. So we're partnering with these student groups and more to just get the word out about mental health and wellness. Our first big fall event was the Street Fest Wellness Week, and it was super hot that day, but we had a lot of students. We had a lot of students show up. It was with peer helpers, and then we had things that were happening after school. So really wanting to have that mental health focus happening just to start the year off. And then as we continue on through the years, we are going to have the comfort dogs coming in again. That should be fun. Our end of the semester de-stress activities. And then we're partnering with people from the admin team and faculty to incorporate wellness lessons within the classroom. So we're trying to get there with very structured and targeted things to students in classrooms to really get that mental health and wellness focus in there. And that's it. That's all I got for you. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Gary.
How are the counselors managing to keep up with all this stuff? And how are you keeping your eye on them to make sure that they're okay? Because it seems like you have so many great programs and their presence in, throughout the school and all these, and the survey responses. It's just so much activity, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of input from students who are reaching out for help more than usual. How are the counselors dealing with that?
Yeah, I'll take that, Gary. Thank you, first of all, for acknowledging that. It really has been, we've been working hard in student services because I think we've seen, as we would anticipate, that students have struggled to readjust. Some students have struggled to readjust to the school year. One of the things that I'm proud of in terms of how we've thought differently about our work in student services is we've really leaned on our core counselors, and we've created teams to kind of help counselors have other folks within our division to rely on. So we have pods, we call them, our 3 pods within student services, where the counselors have their 6 colleagues, and they are sharing some of the work, working together to get through some of the things that they need to manage, and being able to collaborate and really rely on one another. I think some of the other things that we've done too is just try to, like the good counselors we are, acknowledge that it's been a tough year and try to create some spaces where we can just be honest about that and help support each other as colleagues through what has been a challenging fall. And lastly, I would share we're really stepping up our data collection. So every student now swipes into the office to see their counselor, social worker, psychologist, or dean. So we have more comprehensive data than we've ever had before about workload and students that each counselor, social worker, and psych is seeing. And so we plan to look at that. We've actually already started doing that, but really plan to look at that data to help us understand how we can better support counselors and to help us kind of get a sense of the patterns and how we may need to adjust accordingly. I don't know, Sarah or Patty, if there's anything else
That was pretty
I've left
comprehensive.
out. Thanks, I tried, friends, I tried.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, of course, thank you for the question. Yes,
Let me ask it a
Dave,
different-
yeah.
Let me ask it a different way.
Sure.
Is your plate too full?
Yeah, I think, I think, you know, this year, so it's truly, it's a little bit hard to give a comprehensive sense of how students are adjusting back. I will tell you, you know, some numbers that we need to be mindful of is our risk assessment, so the follow-ups that we have to do when students share concerns around, you know, self-harm or harm to others are up quite a bit, you know, and it's a third of the way into the school year, but that's something that we're struggling with. Our hospitalizations are increased for students. So I think we are seeing student needs evolving and increased this year, and we are having to work, you know, to meet the needs of students and to think about how work is assigned within our division to meet the needs of kids.
I think to add on to that, because, you know, we're seeing that increased need, I think every school is.
Mhm.
So that kind of ties into the community resources that are tapped into and maybe the lack thereof of availability. So we're seeing higher wait lists in the community.
Yeah.
So to kind of counterbalance that, I think our amazing folks in student services are supporting kids even more on different levels that maybe they would have received supports outside in the community for, so.
Yeah.
Let me ask another
More
question.
of that comes to us,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the other question I have is, I'm not really clear on your answer if your plate's too full or not, but is your plate too full?
Yeah, I think
Our plate is really
our plate is
piled
full.
high.
It's full. Our
We're
plate is
piling.
full.
Yeah.
I think, you know, what I would like to say is I think our plate is full, and I think we need to continue to kind of look at the data that we're gathering from a year-long standpoint and really analyze it. I almost feel, and I'm truly not trying to be evasive, I'm really not, I just feel like we need a little bit of a bigger picture of where things are at.
Let me ask a second
We're
question.
currently
Yeah.
doing Dave, just real quick, we're currently doing a time study, and so
Okay.
that's what they're
I
referring
wanna
to.
hear from
Yeah,
them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looking back over the pandemic stuff, how badly did we get hurt?
From the in terms of the impact on students.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Sarah alluded to a significant impact, and that is the community resources and the hospital programs and things like that that used to exist a lot more to meet the more intensive needs of students. They are quite full and taxed themselves. So families, as they should, are looking to us to sort of fill that gap. And so we are having to really be we're having to kind of evolve and shift to be able to maybe meet that need that previously, quite honestly, we would have relied heavily on the community to be able to support, you know, because we are not, as you all probably know, that is not the role of really a student services division. We are not intensive, we don't do intensive counseling, we support kids so they can access their education. So it is putting a strain on us, and as Sarah said, this is literally a national issue.
Oh, I'm sure it
Yeah,
is.
it's not a Stevenson unique thing, but it's a national issue that that's new for us, that we're kind of really having to evolve to figure out how to address that concern.
It's tough stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So just follow along that, do you see where students are coming out of that gradually?
Sure. Yeah, I think I would, and thank you, Faye, for that question. I think what I would say, and please jump in, I feel like I'm dominating.
No, you're doing
as I
awesome.
always do. I
got to dominate
think
the
that
first
it's
part.
really hard to generalize the student experience this year. So I think we have seen some students, they can't wait to be back, and they are loving all the things, and they are so excited and eager to be kind of experiencing in-person school. So that is absolutely an experience that lives out there, and that's wonderful. And then we are also seeing some students who are struggling, and we're not seeing it get better at this point yet. Then we also see a group of students who dealt with the transition, and it's a success story. We are working to help those students kind of work through some of their challenges and be successfully integrated back into the class. So again, I wish it was a tidier, we have a messy, kind of a messy job that we do that it's hard to kind of to answer in a succinct way sometimes. So I think there's lots of different experiences of lots of different students, if that helps.
And I think to add to that, so I know Patty on one of the slides was mentioning the partnerships with student programs and student clubs. I'm blessed to be one of the sponsors of Peer Helpers, so really one of the shining lights I think for myself in the pandemic, and I think all of us in student services, is seeing our students even step up in terms of kind of social awareness, mental health supports. And like Peer Helpers, for example, does a variety of awareness weeks throughout the school to talk about different initiatives. We just had the LGBTQIA+ awareness week, mental health awareness weeks. So our students are really stepping up as well to work with us as SST members in order to help support these really important initiatives and cause and create awareness in order to support their community, which is amazing to see.
Agreed. I think another piece too, to piggyback on that is, so, in the 9 years that I've done this job, we have seen students become much more comfortable with talking about mental health and acknowledging the struggles they're having and advocating for their peers, wanting to make sure their friends are supported, and that is amazing and wonderful. And I'm so I'm really, as always, the new generation will help save the world, right? So that's a wonderful thing, and it also means that we need to be prepared to help the students as they are more comfortable coming to us saying, hey, look, I really need your help right now, I'm struggling, or my friend is struggling.
And I think that's a great problem to have, right? Like, we made it so that they are comfortable seeing us.
Yep.
So they're comfortable seeing us, and they're coming to see us.
My question was, you sort of hit on it, but in terms of one of the big changes that I've certainly seen in the communication piece is that it's student focused a lot with the, peer helpers and all of that. Do you see that as being sort of the next bridge, is that really where the focus is going to go in terms of helping students I'm not talking about crisis management or risk, but just really kind of continuing to grow the students helping each other? That's kind of the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly how I look at it. As always, our students, I think they have an ability to impact each other in a way that we never will as adults. And we saw that on that 129-degree day in August when we were all at our Wellness Street Fest. That was a really powerful event where we were seeing our student leaders in their very best light, helping to, recruit community providers, yoga people, all these different sorts of wellness initiatives, and to really spread the word to encourage their friends to come. And I think, Ted, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but Ted shared that was one of the best attended street fests in recent memory. So what a cool collaboration, what a truly cool organic student-led experience. And I think we're looking for ways to have more of that, to truly help the students, help us, help them.
Well, and I remember from the survey, diving into the questions a little deeper, that often the top answer for where to get assistance was from their friends. Year after year, that was a very consistent, and it was a specifically academic tutoring sense, but clearly that is where they feel comfortable and want to go. So I like that direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I loved what you said too, this idea that not necessarily for like these crisis situations, right? So I think part of our work is so important to help educate students on when to ask for help and what are certain situations, like our Signs of Suicide program that we facilitate in freshman and junior programs. Some of these things are beyond what we would want a teenager to be dealing with, supporting their friend necessarily completely through, and that's where trained professionals come into play. So I love what you said there, because I think that's so important in terms of our work in educating and supporting our students.
And I think normalizing it, everyone feels anxiety, everybody, I think, bringing that into a realm of that's not a crisis, that's just a feeling sometimes, and how do we manage that, I think is a really key piece to their overall well-being.
Yeah.
That they should be able to hopefully help support each other with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we sincerely appreciate your support. Thank you.
We love getting the report, thank you so much.
See you next year.
And thank you for being there for all of our students. It was a
thank you.
difficult year, and we do all appreciate that you were there for them.
Truly.
Sarah LaFrancis, are you happy in your new role?
I am, thank you guys. Yes, thank you, please continue.
We're happy in her new role too.
Yeah,
We
no, it's
we
great,
love her,
yes.
we love her.
I'm very blessed, thank you.
She's a good egg.
All right. Seating. Okay, and we're also excited to have Tony Rival here tonight to join us and share our student achievement report. Again, last year with COVID and all the challenges and difficulties, these are two presentations we didn't get a chance to share last year. So we're excited to have Tony Rival, our assistant principal for teaching and learning here, to share our 2021 student achievement report. So thank you, Tony, for being here.
I just smiled at everybody, but I.
Yeah. We saw it.
All right, good. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
All right, so this is our annual student achievement report that I do every year. Last year was on Zoom. Glad to be back in person, sharing this information. My office has been hard at work putting this together to give you a good glimpse of what we've been doing this and how we've been performing this last year. I added this in just before this just to make sure that we could follow along. When you guys look at this in PDF form, here's the contents and the slides that they pertain to. We're going to start out with SAT. Now again, this report connects to our school goals and how we're doing in relation to those. And the SAT, we were able to give the SAT, but we were not able to give the PSAT 10 due to COVID. So there were still some shortfalls in our data, some holes that will hopefully this year we'll be able to fill, but it is a little bit short still. The first slide that I want to show here is our mean scores and how we compare to the state and nation as well. So if you look just how to read this, we've got our two subtests, our reading and writing at the top and math. And then we've got our benchmarks, Illinois benchmark, College Board benchmark, and those cut scores there. Then we've got a history of our students' performance all the way back to 2017 to 2021. And then the last two rows are how we compare to the state and how we compare nationally in 2021. So you can see our scores even through the pandemic were pretty steady, which was exciting. And we still are above the state and national averages as well. But again, the exciting part to me and I think to the admin team today was that we stayed steady through the pandemic.
So did they change the grading so that remaining steady just means steady relative to everyone else, or?
They never change the grade.
Yeah.
That norm doesn't change.
So that's really quite
Yeah.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Continuing on with the SAT, our kids continue to show great growth. So 90% of our students meet expected growth, 20% even go to exceeding that growth. We have about 6% of the class of 2022 exceeded maximum growth in both the reading and writing and math. So in both subtests they exceeded, which is also a pretty exciting fact. But on the flip side, we still have about 1% of our students still not meeting minimal growth. And I think the follow-up question that we'll continue to explore is how do we help these students? As far as the number of SAT exams taken, the interesting part on this slide to me is that there was an increase of students who only relied on the school day SAT as their sole SAT exam. So there's an increasing number of kids who just take that school day SAT, and that's what they take. And, you know, there's obviously, we have weekend SATs that kids can take at other schools and our site as well. But there is kind of this decreasing number of taking those extra, you know, 2, 3 SATs and just relying on that 1 or 2 chances at that. So I can't speculate as why that is, but it is.
Well, one potential is schools aren't requiring it,
Right.
you know, and the kids know that. So
Very
if
true.
they're not, you know, depending on where they're trying to go and what, you know, if you don't have to,
Yeah.
what would you, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few years when things return to normal. If, I think it's here to stay for test optional for an awful lot of schools.
And my concern is the 7 students that took 4 or more
Yeah.
SATs.
There's
What kind
29
of
the year
pressure are they
before.
under to do well, achieve, and get into a certain school? That's a lot of pressure on kids.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing, the way those numbers are going, that those numbers are coming down
Oh, from the year before,
from the year
yes.
Yeah.
before, you know,
And it's entirely possible that Illinois will move away from ACT and SAT as the state test, as more and more states do so and more colleges make it test optional. Why would you have it as your state test if it's no longer, you know, considered an integral part of the application process? So I don't know what the lifespan is of a SAT as a state test, but I don't think it'll be
I
around
think
much longer.
ACT is gonna die off first, personally.
Yeah.
Just because they don't have the college board, SAT has the whole college board suite behind
Correct.
them, and they have a lot of power in the industry. ACT doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years that is gone altogether.
Absolutely.
All right, and kind of rounding out the SAT, the highest and last score, average scores. I put this in here mainly because a rep told me one time that the first time a kid takes a standardized test is statistically plays out to be their highest score. And if you look to the column on the right, we continue to have a large amount of students who grow and continue to get better each time that they take it. So I refuse to believe that the first time was their highest score. So I went after this data point this year, and our kids supported me in that hypothesis. So we are excited to see that our kids continue to grow, that their highest score tends to be their last time they take it. So they are working hard and achieving that as well.
And if you don't speak SAT yet, the 1256 is approximately a 26. It's around a 26 on the ACT. For just a comparison for those of you that are around these numbers for a while.
And now for intermission. We don't have any Illinois State Science assessment. We had a waiver that we took. So the kids that would normally get it in the spring when it's normally taken, they took it this fall. We don't have the data until January. And then we will give the current juniors the Illinois assessment this spring again. So we will have a huge wave of this data next year, but for right now, I consider this intermission in the presentation. College readiness. One of our school goals is that our kids take at least, by the time they graduate, 1 college level experience. This includes dual credit, 10 campus, and AP. And for the last 4 years, we're kind of aligned with that. Again, 92% of our kids graduate with at least 1 college level experience. So that's exciting to see that even through COVID, the kids persisted and reached out for those college level experiences, and they kept the percentage the same. Now for the meatier part of the presentation, AP, student performance. We had a slight increase in the number of students, 3 whole kids that took an AP exam. What's that?
3 tests.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3 whole tests, sorry, I skipped ahead. Yeah, 3 whole tests we increased by, so pretty steady with last year. We had about 50 kids who completed at least 1 AP, so an increase of 50. And we had a 62% of our juniors and seniors took at least 1 AP exam. So the data's pretty steady to last year, not too much of a change. We had 84% of our students earn at least 1 score of a 3, again, pretty consistent with years past. We had 82% of all the exams, those 5,000-ish exams, 82% of those received a 3 or above. So again, pretty consistent with the numbers in the past as well. So not too much of excitement in the data, it's been pretty steady, but I think that's good as well. In 2020, so this is the long, all the way back to 2003, this graph's getting pretty hefty at this point, but in 2020, we had virtual exams only. So all AP exams during COVID that year were all online. They were 45-minute exams, and I believe most of them were in essay format. But this year, 2021, this past spring, they were both formats. Some were only paper back to the old way, and some continued to be online. But the interesting point is that we had less exams. If you look to 2019, 18, even 17-ish, we had kind of less exams these last 2 years, but we had an increase in kids taking the exams. So that was an exciting data point to see this year.
Now, did we write more exams than anyone else in the world?
I don't know. I'm assuming we do, but I don't know.
Yes.
The world scared me. The word world scared me.
No, don't, I mean, there's a way to, it's a data point you could find.
I would be shocked if there was any school that wrote more. But we will find out.
Good.
We did just nationally, we saw kind of a dip in the average score, in the modal score between last year and this year. Our mode stayed steady. Our modal score across all exams was a 4. And our average dipped slightly to 3.6. It's been, the last 5-6 years, it's been at 3.8, 3.9. But nationally, that average dipped as well. So I think just across the board, kids, dipped a little bit due to, coming out of that fatigue of COVID, I think. Just as a footnote, I put on there, 26 out of our 31 AP courses did have a lower mean than compared to 2020. So it wasn't that drastic, but it was a lower mean. So nothing really to cause alarm. It wasn't like 3.8 to 1.2, but just to highlight that there was this overall trend in most of our courses just to dip a little bit. Some other things, decline in overall scores, like I just said, particularly hard hit was world language and STEM. AP Chem and AP Calc AB were particularly hard hit as far as the dip in the average. There's been an overall decline in the number of AP exams taken in the past 2 years globally. Nationally. And SHS, our AP Physics 1 had more scores of 2 than previous years. Those are just some trends that we saw in the data. We continue to have most of our AP exams in math, science, and social studies. That's pretty consistent with years past. You can see the mean score of 3.8 in math, 3.3 in science, 3.7 in social studies. And percentage of exams that scored a 3 or above, you can see the percentage there as well. But this is pretty consistent with years past that math, science, and social studies are heavy hitters when it comes to writing exams. This is a breakdown by grade level. Again, the majority of our juniors and seniors are taking the AP, the bulk of our AP exams. Sophomores, again, pretty high. We do have 11 freshmen who took exams. It's the language exams that we don't offer the courses for, so Japanese is one of them. I know you mentioned another one today. It would be- Japanese was one of them. I can't remember off the top of my head.
We get a few kids who try to take the AP World History test after they take
Yeah, that's
freshman World
right.
History
World History.
without taking the World History AP class.
So I think it's increased by like 2 or 3 kids, but it's typically, you know, in the 10 or less, so we're pretty consistent. Of the students who registered and took at least one exam, the bulk of those kids, 57%, took 1 or 2. The next highest was 3 to 4. So again, just to show that we don't have a ton of kids taking 6, 7, 8 exams, even though the kiddos want to kind of throw that myth out there, we're just not seeing that. And this has been pretty consistent since we started pulling this data about 4 or 5 years ago. Moving to grade distribution, kind of rounding the corner and heading home here. Our grade distribution, I know this might be harder to see, but if we look at our A's, B's, and C's, D's, and F's across each of our divisions, and we look kind of like pre-COVID to during COVID, our grade distributions didn't really change. So we didn't have more kids getting D's and F's or struggling more than we saw pre-COVID. This is SEM 1, same, lots of green. Those are in blue, those are A's and B's. So again, pre-COVID, it was pretty consistent with that. So back to the SAT, our third-party exams held steady, our grade distributions held steady. So our kids were able to persevere and kind of keep going through that pretty big event. So. Seal of Biliteracy. A new addition to the Student Achievement Report is our Seal of Biliteracy. We had 259 students earn the Seal of Biliteracy, and since 2015, we've increased the number of these awards, particularly in Spanish, Chinese, and French. There were 12 languages in which students received the seal and 7 commendations, and 70 students awarded a commendation toward biliteracy. Now, the difference, being a former language teacher talking to Justin Fisk, our director, a seal is intermediate high level of that language, right? And a commendation is intermediate low. So they have to achieve those 2 levels of speaking. Intermediate high, you get the seal, whatever language it is. And intermediate low, you would get the commendation. And there's a rubric and criteria for that. But that's what the difference between those two mean. So about 30% of our graduating class received either a seal or a commendation. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Do you have any that received it in multiple languages?
A few.
Yeah.
There are a handful. Number of our Chinese students were taking Spanish, so they would get it in Spanish and Chinese. And a couple of our Russian students as well.
That's impressive.
Yeah, my own boy who's a freshman here, he said to me the other night, "Can I get that seal thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, go for it." So it's even on his radar as well. And then closing up our student voice survey or panorama survey for social emotional learning. We've been watching through our student voice survey our classroom belonging. And even though we had that COVID dip, which is expected, we're back up to that 71% of the 22,000 students saying that they felt strongly connected to their classroom. And where that puts us is in the 99th percentile. So even though that percentage, 70%, not sure, a lot of assumptions in that, we are in the 99th percentile with classroom belonging. And I think that goes along with what Sarah and Patty were talking about. The students do feel connected to us. They want to learn from their peers. So I'm excited to see this. When in the winter survey, so we're talking about our junior class here, when it came to our SEL questionnaire, so this is different than the student voice survey. This is our class by class SEL questionnaire. And grit seemed to hold steady as far as their students self-reporting that they're able to persevere through challenges. And that puts us in the 70th percentile. So, not as high as classroom belonging. Even though it held steady kind of through the COVID time, we do fall 70% with students self-reporting that they feel that they can persevere through challenges. But on a positive note with grit, our freshmen came in and reported and came out with a 3.8, which put them, Molly, I don't have the
80th percentile.
80th, there it is, 80th percentile. So a little bit more grit out of our incoming freshmen or our new freshmen. So that was exciting to see as well, that coming out of the pandemic, some of those kids who are seventh graders, maybe in mind and body here, are saying, hey, I can meet the challenges of Stevenson High School and I feel pretty good about it. So that was exciting to see. All right, any questions? Yeah, Dave.
Tony, does it surprise you that the grade distribution wasn't different from pre-COVID to COVID?
Not necessarily, because our grade distributions represent competence and skills more than participation and compliance points. So I think whether you're providing evidence via virtual or in person, I think you can still achieve that same level. So I'm not totally surprised by it. It did make me wonder, but I think what we've done with our grading has helped. Because if we didn't have it that way, you'd have to really adjust what we were doing before the traditional stuff, so could have skewed it.
Well, and I do think that the scores on the SAT and the AP exams showed, for the most part, that we came through it at a pretty similar level.
Academically.
So academically, we were still performing at a level that we had before, and I think that outside measure sort of lines up.
So it's not attributed to a lowering of the bar and teachers just being nice to them, basically?
Right, if it was grade inflation, you would expect to see a significant drop in your AP scores and
SAT
SAT
scores.
and you don't see that.
So Joel, thank you for your question.
Exactly. It's a good question, it's just, those are nationally known assessments, so you feel a little bit more comfortable.
I would have expected a different result.
But I do think that, to be clear though, our teachers were working their tails off on behalf of kids, and I think that, needs to just be recognized as well, and our kids worked really, really hard. So, I think that there was just a lot of hard work put in during the pandemic, which also, I think, contributed to pretty steady levels of learning. So I think all those things combined, are
Well,
play a part.
the thing I'm trying to get my arms around, what I was asking Sarah and what I'm asking Tony is, how badly did our kids get hurt? And if the answer is, not that bad,
I wouldn't say that.
where does it show?
Mental
I
health.
think you have a lot of,
Is it
I think
all
what you-
social emotional stuff?
absolutely, and I think that's what Sarah said, is you have a lot more referrals, and you have a lot more.
Yes,
Yes.
they're busier.
Yes, and I think that our kids we are seeing a significant rise in the number of students who are struggling with mental health issues. And so and again, although they did okay academically, I do think there was a cost and continues to be a cost to the mental health as a result of the pandemic.
I would agree. And do we adjust any capacities because of that?
We have,
Even if it's temporary?
yeah, we have in different places within the organization, especially through the ELC.
Are we flexible enough to do that?
Yes, and the ELC provides us with a lot of flexibility for a great number of our kids, so, yeah.
You're doing it right. You're doing the best you can anyway.
Can I ask?
Mm-hmm.
So how does this all tie to, toward the end of last year, we did testing to see where, during summer, we would try and increase the proficiencies of where the kids were being hurt. it was, I don't remember now what happened. Didn't we do testing at the end of last spring where we saw where the deficiencies were and we're gonna remedy that in the summer? Weren't there things?
Well, not testing per se, but we, examined
Yeah.
how the kids were performing in their classes and then tried to see if we needed to create any specific courses to kind of close the gaps on kids, is how I guess I would describe it.
Yeah, like more of a crosswalk between SAT proficiencies and the proficiencies in our classrooms. It wasn't necessarily just a test of that, it was just more of a.
We didn't want to test kids.
But was that part of what helped maintain the performance or
I
We don't know.
didn't collect that data, so I can't,
we wouldn't know how to determine what?
Probably not,
yeah,
because the grade distributions you were showing did not include summer school.
correct.
Eric, do these results get shown to the teachers so they have an idea of that all that hard work is paying off?
That'll
Do they
probably
see
be
this?
part of our mid-year meeting this year.
Usually in the
will be
mid-year meeting, we show data,
celebration.
not to the extent that Tony just did, but we do share information out.
Yeah, I guess just to
Yeah.
get the message across that we know that you guys are jumping
People
through
are-
hoops for 18 months.
Absolutely.
And look, it actually has paid off, the students are doing well,
Yeah, absolutely.
all things considered.
All right. And then Jamie, includes the information as well. We push it out. We'll include it now in the board briefs also. But yes,
Yeah, I think this would be good for the community to be aware of.
well, Tony, thank you so much. This is great. And maybe Tony, you could work with Jamie and Troy, if Troy's interested, on helping to maybe provide some of those highlights that Jamie can include in the board brief, and then maybe even in the Minuteman, if Tony, if you wanna maybe put together a little article for the Minuteman as well. Jamie? Yeah, okay.
She already tapped me on the shoulder.
She already got you, okay.
Fair.
Oh, Faye, did you?
Yes, I do have a question. It might be too early to think about it. Anyway, in case the SAT, ACT are gone, so it's like a big block of this learning, teaching, track record would be missing. So in addition, other than AP scores and our grades distribution, I feel like we seems to be missing a really important part. Our students are doing so well in all sorts of competitions, state level, national. Have we ever thought about collecting data in that regard? It's academic.
Thinking about it, I think we would have to collectively talk about that, but could we?
I think Ted has a lot of that data, and Trish, obviously. Compiling all of that would be interesting. We could.
I think that's really a
Yep.
big part of Stevenson's
Absolutely.
students' achievement. And a lot to do with the teachers, classroom, and then if the SAT is gone, I wouldn't.
Well, I don't think the
miss
SAT will
it.
ever be gone. Don't get me wrong. I think ACT and SAT will be here for a long, long time. I just don't think the state of Illinois will require it as the state test. Right now, the SAT is our high school state test. I think that's something that they'll consider, eliminate it at some point, but I think ACT and SAT will be here for many years to come. Because it'll be something that kids will be able to use to differentiate themselves when applying to colleges. And some kids will want to be able to demonstrate how well they can perform on those tests. So, it'll be here, it's just, I don't know that Illinois will use it as its high school measurement of how high schools are doing, if that makes sense. But, to your point, yes, that'd be interesting to try to compile, all that information into one place.
I think that would be a good data set to show.
Yeah, I've been working, last year I worked with Jamie and before that with Jim, because I always use that for my graduation speech. But that's kind of hard to compare from year to year.
Yeah.
You have a student who's on the international physics competition, one of 5 US students. But the next year, you have someone who won a, an international science fair, how do you compare or contrast whether you're doing better or worse? It's great information to have, cause it tells a story, but it's, when you're doing the kind of comparison that we're doing here, it's different.
Like for college application, how they would allow you to present your achievement is it like school level, state level, national level, or international level? That's how they would characterize it, the sort of achievement. I just think it's such a nice piece of information. It seems we're not presenting it.
Sure, I can start conversations with Ted and see where that goes. So, okay.
Right.
Thanks for the homework.
Thank you so much, Tony. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so those are our two reports for tonight. And again, last year we had to do Tony's report virtually, and I don't think we were able to present information from student services. So it was nice to see both of those tonight and in person. So thank you for being a part of those. Okay, so tonight, Mark, we have we're recommending tonight that the board approve our goals, projects, and initiatives with action steps. You may have had the opportunity to explore those more in depth, but this is something we worked on at the retreat, and over the past couple months, Mark has worked with the administrative team to identify very specific action steps that members of the administrative team will do to help us reach each of those goals, projects, and initiatives. So tonight, the recommendation is that board approve the action steps for the 2021-2022 GPIs as presented.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Eric on the GPIs? It's a voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Okay, and then we also have tonight bringing forward a recommendation for the board to adopt policy updates contained in Press Plus issue 106. And if you recall, we are excluding policy 4:90, which Sean is working on with his team. And virtually all of the changes here are minor and wordsmithing. We're just taking the recommendations from Press and presenting them to you for your approval.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on those updates? A voice vote again, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, yeah.
Opposed? Passes.
Okay, and then tonight we are also bringing forward a revised version of the 2022-2023 school calendar. You may recall in the spring or summer, again, pandemic is throwing me off on exactly when it happened, but the state legislature approved November 8th every other year as a state holiday. So we have to take that day off. We cannot waiver that day as a holiday. And in fact, it has to be a day off for all school employees as well, as Sean and I learned a couple weeks ago. So we needed to make adjustments to the school calendar. And as we did that, we realized that it would be very difficult just to take one day and include that. So our recommendation tonight is to approve a school calendar that moves the first day of school to August 11th instead of August 15th. Winter break will begin on December 12th instead of December 23rd instead of December 26th. So we'll put a day before winter break and have that day in November, and move the school year up for kids by 2 days.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Eric?
The only thing I'll say is that by doing this, it kind of mirrors how we started this school year, if that makes any sense. It's a day earlier in general, but it's around the same time frame for both the adults and the kids.
Okay.
The finals days are on there as early dismissal. Is that still, are we still working on how that's gonna look?
The MOU still working on what that.
Still working on that?
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So for our January calendar, we have a red slash, a teacher day, But that's usually our board meeting date, that doesn't change, right?
Correct.
Because this is a legal holiday, and we usually don't have it on Martin Luther the King's
Correct.
birthday.
Martin Luther the King.
That's correct.
So do we wanna,
We will
we'll wiggle around with that?
Yeah, we'll worry about that later. We got time
Well, not
for that.
tonight, but.
Yeah. You're away.
Okay, would you poll the board, please?
Oh, certainly, Gorson,
Aye.
Moons, aye, no,
Aye.
Shane,
Aye.
Frost,
Aye.
Weisberg,
Aye.
carries 6-0.
Okay, and then tonight, just wanted to share a first reading from the other press update 107. Again, during COVID, we found ourselves a couple issues behind. Most of these, again, are really more wordsmithing and administrative, with the exception of the acceptable use guidelines, which Doug Kaler and his team have reviewed, and changing some of the names as well. So again, only a first reading tonight. We're gonna do a little bit more work to make sure that we're crossing all of our Ts and dotting all of our Is, but we wanted to share that with you if you had any questions. So we'll bring that back next month, Carol.
Yes.
Okay. Then you'll see the personnel report there tonight.
Big ones.
Yep, a lot of information in there. And it'll all be part of the consent. We do not need an executive session following the meeting. And that takes us to the business section, Sean, beginning with the authorization of a certificate for the 2021 tax levy.
Correct, thank you. So in October, I brought before the board a recommendation for our 2021 tax levy. We also discussed that at our finance committee last week. The short version is that we are recommending that the board approve a tax levy of $110 million, $110,600,000. After the county does in fact implement the PTEL legislation, we believe that the overall increase will be somewhere under 2% over this particular year. So tonight we are recommending that the Board of Education approve the 2021 tax levy in the amount of $110,600,000 even.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Third. Thank you. Any questions for Sean? Would you poll the board, please?
Certainly, Moons, aye, no,
Aye.
Shane,
Aye.
Frost,
Aye.
Weisberg,
Aye.
Gorson,
Aye.
carries 6-0.
Our next agenda item is the authorization to replace the multifunction devices. This is something that we haven't brought to the board in many years, and that's a good and bad thing. The good news is that we haven't had to replace it. The bad news is that we do have to replace a little bit more machines than we normally would replace at any given particular year. This year that totals 19 machines. However, as we negotiated the machines, we've changed some of the capacity on the machines, still making them efficient and effective, but we're also going to be adding a paper cut, which is a software that will allow swipe and print functionality. And when all said and done, we are going to see about a $25,000 decrease in our annual cost for multifunction devices. So tonight we are recommending that the Board of Education authorize the replacement of 19 multifunction devices on a 5-year lease at an annual cost not to exceed $113,649.48.
Are multifunction devices really printers?
They're actually a fax machine, printer, copier, and
And they do a little
scan
dance
the email,
and make
all
coffee? Okay.
wrapped into one.
The answer's yes.
But yes.
The answer's yes.
Can I have a motion,
It's a
please?
printer, they're my printers.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sean?
Sean, when you went through all this, are you adding any machines or removing
No,
any
these
machines?
are-
Is this
these-
all over the same number?
Correct, yeah, we've continued to keep our machine count at that low number. If you recall, several years ago, we started eliminating printers and multifunction devices, forcing individual printers to share multifunction devices.
Yeah,
So we
how's that-
haven't added
how's that
anything
part
new.
of it going? I mean,
Good. you know, we're in a situation where our trend of how our annual copies are going up and down has kind of been thrown off whack, so we're really looking to get back to a base year this year to see how many copies we're making on an annual basis. But I think this paper cut software will allow us to eliminate those, oh, I hit the print button and then I forget to go get it at a printer and I can go get it somewhere else. Swipe and print basically means I hit the printer button, I hit print, and then I can go to any device in the building and just swipe my ID and it automatically prints out my documents, so.
That's kind of cool.
It'll reduce a lot of waste.
We're hoping to reduce waste and copies significantly.
Cool, thanks.
That's what we do in the corporate place.
So what you do in corporate? Yeah. Sometimes we're a little slower.
Good. Any other questions? Would you poll the board, please?
No.
Aye.
Shang.
Aye.
Frost.
Aye.
Weisberg.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Moon's aye, carries 6-0.
Okay, as we discussed at our previous finance committee meeting, there is a need to issue working cash bonds. The first kind of series of resolutions that are coming tonight is the intent to sell. So we are recommending that the Board of Education approve the resolution declaring the intention to issue $17 million in working cash fund bonds for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of the district and directing that notice of such intention be published in the manner provided by law.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We talked about this at the finance committee.
Correct.
Last week significantly.
Yep.
Any other questions for Sean? Would you poll the board, please?
Certainly. Shang. Frost.
Aye.
Weisberg.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Moon's aye, no.
Aye.
Carries 6-0.
You'll see that I have a first reading there. We're starting to get a little concerned about some of the casework in our science labs in terms of delivery time. So we are holding the bid earlier than anticipated in hopes that we can have the board take action on that in December. So I'll be bringing that back and you'll read more in the mid-meeting memo. And lastly, you can see the series of FOIA requests that we have, and I'd like to point out that just in this fiscal year only, we are over $7,500 in costs for FOIA requests. Of that, about $3,800 of that is in legal fees this year. So just an update. Other than that, that's all I have for the board tonight. Thank you very much.
What is casework?
Casework is like a fancy word for cabinets, like this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Eric or Sean on the consent agenda? Would you poll the board, please?
Frost.
Aye.
Weisberg.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Moon's aye, no.
Aye.
Shang.
Aye.
Carries 6-0.
Superintendent's report.
All right, we have just a couple items for tonight. The first is we wanted to give Mark Onischek, our Director of Curriculum Instruction Assessment, a few minutes to share some conversations that we have been having across the consortium related to our math sequencing or pathways. We've had a SAC, PAC, and CASA meeting, so superintendents, principals, and curriculum directors last week, to talk about the sequencing of the mathematics pathways. And so we are going to be seeing some changes in those pathways across the consortium, and thought we would give Mark, and I think Troy might throw in a couple thoughts as well, an opportunity to share maybe a summary of that meeting.
Sure, so thank you so much. And this really helps just to map out what our current sequencing is. And I just thought I would share that with you first so that you can see what the changes are. But all this work sort of radiates out of the work that's being done in the mathematics division with Dershan James, Sue Ellen Boza, our mathematics consortium specialist, and Val Tomkill, our new assistant director for mathematics. And the real work that we're doing really reaches back into our center schools, back into middle school.
And we've got a number of different pathways through mathematics throughout our high school. So we always reach back into our discussions with our center schools back to 7th grade and even 6th grade, as you'll see. And there are a number of different pathways for students as they're proceeding through the sequence of mathematics. Starting in this pathway where a 7th grader would take 7th grade mathematics, then 8th grade mathematics, and then enter 9th grade at Algebra 1, then take geometry, Algebra 2, and then pre-calculus. Another pathway would be a 7th grader taking a compressed version of 7th and 8th grade mathematics, and then in 8th grade, they would take Algebra 1, then geometry, Algebra 2, pre-calculus, and then land in calculus come their senior year here at Stevenson. The third pathway are for students that enter into 7th grade, taking Algebra 1, then run into Algebra 2 in 8th grade, geometry 9th grade, then wind up in pre-calculus, calculus, and perhaps statistics, right? And then one final pathway is when a 7th grader, and we have about 50 of these students, start off in Algebra 2 in 7th grade, take geometry, and they'll come here to Stevenson in 8th grade, and then pre-calculus, calculus, statistics, and then linear algebra their senior year. So that's a pathway sequence that our current students are taking. So there's like a real range, right?
He didn't say Algebra 2 in college.
Oh. Thank you, sorry, I wasn't fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw me off my game. Aaron.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
The whole purpose of this, though, is to take a look at what's been happening in these two pathways, which we've been finding to be particularly successful. And you'll notice how these pathways are different from the other two pathways. And it's simply this, is that the algebra sequence goes from Algebra 1 to geometry, then Algebra 2, right? And then it goes Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2. Where in these sequences over here, right, in the right-hand side, are Algebra 1, Algebra 2, then geometry, right? Or the student here, what we'll see is this sort of like loop that's different from this one. And then here, where a 6th grader would take Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, and then follow that same sequence. What we want to do is make these sequences follow this sequence, right? Where the sequence would then be Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2, right? Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2. And that's the idea here with this sort of sequencing change. So over the course of the past couple of years, we've been working with the center schools to think through this change, because it doesn't mean a change that just happens here at the high school. It means a change that we want to sort of work with our center districts, District 96, 102, 103, all of our 70s districts, to coordinate this change so that we're supporting the student learning over the course of, all the way back from 6th grade through high school. So there's just been a lot of collaboration that's gone into thinking this through and the value of getting there. So the real changes are really only in these two different pathways, as you notice. So it affects a percentage of the students, and we wanted you to be made aware of it, simply because of all the thought that's gone into it and the benefits that we see within this change. So you'll start to see the work here and the discussion that's been going on for quite a bit of time, reaching back to 2015, first within our own math division, but also with a number of different conversations that we've been having within team coaching meetings with teachers from the center schools. We've also been working with the 8th grade, 9th grade placement recommendation process and thinking through how that process has been going within all of the pathways, and then really entering into much more deeper work with the articulation work that we do with our center schools. So that articulation work is time that we spend with our sender districts on a regular basis throughout the year to think through what are the instructional practices we're using, how do we align our curriculum pathways, how do we align our assessment practices, how we're calibrating those assessment practices, how we're entering into classrooms to make sure that instructional practices are similar in the sender districts, so that when students come here, that they're having a similar experience with instructional collaborative models for learning mathematics. And we're really pretty excited about how that articulation has been going on. But over the course of the last couple of years, and last year was a little difficult to pull this off, we've been really working through this sequencing change, and we're really happy to have it here and in a real strong agreement with all of our sender districts, including the districts of the 70s, to really move in this direction. Some of the benefits or the rationale for this is one, and I think Troy is probably better at this than I have. It's been, you know, a long time since I've taken calculus, not since high school and college. But the real benefit has a lot to do with the progression of abstraction that happens between Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, where the students would actually have more experiences applying Algebra 1 to the practices of geometry, working with greater levels of fluency and complexity as they then enter into Algebra 2. So there's a really strong, like a stronger tensile strength to the learning that goes on between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, allowing that year of deep thinking in geometry with the Algebra 1 skills, and then maturing them into Algebra 2. And then it also allows our students to enter Algebra 2 with a stronger background for, of course, pre-calculus. So it really does support those down the stream course curriculum, you know, within that pathway. It supports also other things like students that transfer into our district. Most schools follow this sequence of Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. So when a student comes into the district, as we have many transfer students, that transfer goes more smoothly for our students. There's a lot of really good reasons to do it around student self-perception and following a similar pathway for all students. And then, of course, it just really allows us to have stronger articulation events with our sender districts and the high school, especially with the work that we've been doing with Sue Ellen, our mathematics specialist. So we're seeing a lot of benefits with that. And then, of course, the end goal is that getting Algebra 2 closer to the experience of taking the SAT. You know, they'll be taking pre-calculus there, perhaps junior year, right? And then taking the SAT, and we think that that'll have a lot of benefits for that as well. So we thought if you have any questions or
Just a real
thoughts
quick,
about that.
just to maybe put an exclamation point on what Mark just said. You may be wondering right about now, well, if this is the more traditional pathway, why did we ever do something different? Well, 30 years ago, when the ACT, well, 30 years ago when the ACT was our state test, we wanted to have this, the current pathway, kind of line up so that kids were having that experience closer to the ACT. Well, now, as Mark said, that the SAT is our state test, it makes more sense to kind of butt up Algebra 2 to that experience.
The
So
ACT is geometry heavy, and the model we have now puts geometry closer to junior year, and also we were teaching it here at Stevenson.
Yep.
So
this just kind of makes more sense given the SAT as the required test. And, you know, I think we're at a place where the consortium really understands it. Mark, you've been working really, really hard with Dershin and Val and Sue Ellen, and the whole consortium, I think, is behind this. They're ready to go, and we're excited about it. But David, thank you.
Just a sidebar question. What's linear algebra? Is that vector analysis?
yes,
You're gonna
Oh,
need
shit.
this guy.
Okay. That's tough stuff.
yeah, and our kids do a semester of that before they leave, if they're in that far right
Well,
path.
just to be clear, about
51.
That's what knocked
two
me out of
sections.
engineering.
51 kids do it.
There's two sections worth of kids. This is not.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, that's what knocked me out of engineering. I can't do this. It's too tough. God.
Well, thank you, Mark.
And they get college credit for that.
They do.
No, they deserve it.
They do.
Yeah.
It's a dual credit course.
And Mark, this is actually something that we're looking to, because again, it'll begin, so to speak, in our middle schools.
Yeah.
It'll have a trickle up effect, I guess, and we're looking to start next year.
Yeah.
He was here in 8th grade.
Okay, any other questions about this? Thank you, Mark, we appreciate your hard work.
God.
Okay, also wanted to share with you that Jamie and her team are working really hard on our annual report that we're going to put out in January. So thank you, Jamie, for all of that. She'll share a draft with myself and any of you who would like to see that sometime in December possibly. So thank you for all your hard work on that, Jamie. And then in addition, we have another exciting project that we're working on, which is a parent advisory committee. I'm not sure exactly what ultimately the name will be. But Amy, this is something I know you've been working on as well, but we're always looking to have opportunity to connect with parents. So this is a group that we thought would be composed of the presidents or representatives from the different parent groups that we have here on campus. And they would have a chance to meet, we'll start off maybe quarterly, maybe 6 times during the year with myself and Troy, and make those topical meetings
And Mara.
where we can get input from our parents. So
And Mara too,
Mara is actually
sharing it.
leading that effort
Good.
and telling Troy and I where to go,
As well she
as
should.
as she should.
And I
So
think it's a great opportunity then for the board to engage with parents on a regular basis and, so that there's two-way communication in that forum. So
Absolutely.
I will be at all of the meetings and represent, and then I will pull on anybody who wants to join me. We can only have 2 of us at a given meeting because we don't want to violate the Open Meetings Act. But, so I think Steve is gonna join us for the November one to kick things off, and then I'll be reaching out to anybody. If you're interested in doing it, just let me know and I'll keep you informed as to the meetings and we can
Thank you.
rotate it around so that we get different voices and everybody kind of gets a chance to get to know
Very
each
nice.
other.
yeah,
Very
and those
nice.
meetings will be topical, so we'll have, different issues that we'll kind of address during each session. And for example, we might have a session around communications and how we can improve communications. We might have a session around wellness or things like that, social emotional learning. So we'll kind of play it by ear and see what that group is looking to do. We have been trying to limit the number of in-person kind of meetings and certainly trying to reduce the number of times where we're asking you to be here as well. But we felt like this is one that we wanted to see if we can get the ball started sooner rather than later. So thank you, Amy, for helping to lead that out. And just a couple other items. We have copies of our professional development activities for the 2021 school year. We generally do not make copies for all 600 employees. It is posted on the HR website for people to see it, but I thought if you wanted to be able to see it and have a copy of it, you could do that.
Good bedtime reading.
It's good bedtime reading. And then finally, in the spirit of Board Appreciation Month, in addition to the gifts that have already gone out, we have a note from the FMP Executive Board. So that is a card that has gone around. And it says, we are writing this letter to express our gratitude for all that you do for the Stevenson community. Freshman Orientation Day is such an important annual event for incoming students. With that being said, we are very grateful to have had the opportunity to host it in person this year. We know the past year was full of surprises and the board made many difficult decisions to keep students safe. Thank you for your service during such unprecedented times. This year, the genuine excitement and energy we saw on Freshman Orientation Day reflected the enthusiasm of a return back to in-person learning and school events. We are aware that the D125 board possesses many responsibilities, and we are thankful that you have prioritized the Stevenson experience. We look forward to working with you in the future. And then they included a cute sticky note that says, a belated but sincere thanks for a great start to a year that keeps getting better. Love, the freshman MP board. And then they gave you FMP branded super energy bars. So thank you on behalf of the FMP board.
There is another letter to the board. And it's really quite nice if you want to read.
Yeah, well, I'll pass this one around for folks to read.
Who's that one from?
This is from Zara Dittman. So
It's really,
I will let you read that one.
it's a really nice.
I will let you read that one privately. And that, unless Troy, I'm missing anything? Mark, am I missing anything?
Can I-
Sean, am I missing anything? All right, that's it.
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
We have a move to adjourn.
I just said, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.